Association of America has set the highest standards for golf and the way it is played. IBM is proud of its relationship with the PGA, the PGA Championship, and the more than 23,000 PGA professionals who make golf a better game. The PGA of America and IBM hope you'll enjoy this special presentation of the 76th PGA Championship.
For 1 week in August, the best professional golfers in the world converged on Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the final major of the year, the PGA Championship. Every one of the world's top 40 ranked players was here. Many of them contended, including Masters champion Jose Maria Olazabal and the U.S. Open champion Ernie Els. The defending PGA champion Paul Azinger made a courageous return. And back for one final appearance, Arnold Palmer. Greg Norman had eyes for the Wanamaker Trophy. But in the end, it was Nick Price, the man who had won the British Open only 4 weeks earlier, who staged a virtuoso performance. The Professional Golfers Association of America proudly presents. On the Arkansas River in northeast Oklahoma lies the city of Tulsa. Today, it is a modern, dynamic city with an economy based on petroleum production and manufacturing. But less than a century ago, this was the heart of Indian territory and the home of the Creek Indian tribe. The name Tulsa was their word for council, a coming together of the tribe's leaders to discuss, to dispute, and ultimately to resolve their most important issues. In much the same way, the world's best professional golfers have assembled this week in Tulsa to decide the last of golf's 4 major titles, the PGA Championship. Hi everybody, I'm Jim Nance and I'm standing in the fairway of what might be the most difficult finishing hole in championship golf, the 18th at Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 4 Grand Slam events have been held here during its history, 2 PGAs and 2 U.S. Opens. And always, this uphill par 4 of over 430 yards has been a crusher. In fact, during the 1977 U.S. Open, during one round, it played to a stroke average of 4.8. It's the kind of hole that looms in your mind the moment you lace up your spikes. But there's also plenty of challenge on the 17 holes that precede this one. Southern Hills is over 6,800 yards and plays to a par of 70. It's generally referred to as a driver's course. Length off the tee is important, but length with accuracy is vital, as hundreds of trees line these fairways, and 12 of the 14 driving holes are doglegs. But just as important is the approach shot, where the key is to hit not simply the green, but the correct part of the green. You see, the greens of Southern Hills are some of the most fiercely sloped surfaces in golf. No less a putter than Ben Crenshaw has described them as 18 invitations to 3-putt. But the stiffest challenge at this golf course may be something you can't see. You can only feel the heat. You see, this is the middle of August, and this is the middle of the steamy South Central Plains. Few places in the world are hotter or more humid than Tulsa in the summertime. Average temperature in the mid-90s, and humidity almost the same. Each of the men who has won here in the past, Tommy Bolt, Dave Stockton, Hubert Green, and Ray Floyd, has put together 4 solid rounds of golf and beaten the best in the game. But more important, each of them has stood up to Mother Nature and kept his cool in the ultimate heat of battle. Every one of the top 40 players in the world came to Tulsa this week, but the man happiest to be here was surely the defending champion, Paul Azinger. It was at the Inverness Club in Toledo 1 year ago that Azinger broke through for his first major championship after a tense final round battle with Greg Norman, a battle that went to 2 holes of sudden death before the great white shark suffered this agonizing miss. For Azinger, who had been labeled as the best player never to win a major championship, it was a moment of both triumph and relief. And as he shared his joy with his young family, he seemed on the brink of many more bright and shining days. Instead, 3 months later came the darkest of days. A nagging pain in his shoulder was diagnosed as cancer. But Azinger stood up to life's biggest challenge, and on Thursday, he heard the words he had looked forward to for months.
And defending champion, Paul Azinger.
It's a tough thing to beat. I lost my father to cancer, so to see a friend come through and be back from it, it's wonderful to have Paul back out on the tour, and I know that you all appreciate him being back because he's a class act.
He's a heck of a competitor, and we're very happy to have him back. But none of us feel sorry for him because he's going to be out there trying to beat every one of us.
It's a testament to his character. I mean, I just love nothing more than to see him really play well this week and be in there at the end.
Azinger came to play on Thursday, but he had a larger purpose as well.
I feel like now that I can be an inspiration to people. I have to be really, whether I want to be or not, and I welcome that role now. And people are always going to look at me as a cancer survivor. And there's a lot of people that are fighting the disease that don't have any hope or have little hope. But there are some of those, hopefully they'll look to me and say, hey, well, maybe I can come back. Maybe I can do what Zinger's doing.
With this putt on 18, Azinger finished with a 5-over par 75. His first round wasn't what he would have liked, but this was one championship where the start was more important than the finish. Payne Stewart and Larry Nelson conveyed the sentiments of golfers everywhere. Welcome back, Zinger. It was Stewart, however, who provided most of the excitement in the group. This was his tee shot at the 162-yard 11th hole.
Just came down and rattled the pin, and oh well. Invariably, whenever you do hit the pin, it doesn't stay right next to the hole like it's supposed to, and it ended up coming back about 15 feet, and I hit a good putt there and just went on the top side of the hole.
Payne had trouble making them drop all day long and finished with a 72. But he wasn't the only one with pinpoint accuracy at the 11th. Colin Montgomery, the straightest driver on the European Tour, showed he's also no slouch with an 8-iron.
Bingo. Go ahead.
That one not only hit the pin, it put a dent in the front lip of the cup. And since the rules don't allow repair of such marks until after the hole is completed, Colin had a slight advantage on this putt, but he didn't seem to need it. That was one of 3 birdies on the day, and Montgomery took Thursday's early lead with a 67. Another player who got through the first round without a bogey was Phil Mickelson, who opened with a 68, including this birdie at 16. Mickelson looks at the PGA as a great opportunity.
Any major is a springboard. You look at anybody who's won any major championship and it's changed their career. So, of course I look at it. I look at the PGA, the Masters, US Open, the British Open as all opportunities to get myself going, to get my career going.
Here's a man whose career is in high gear. Just 1 week before the PGA, Fred Couples returned from back problems to win convincingly at the Buick Open. At the 5th hole, however, his ball had nestled into the fringe, leaving a tricky little shot that was neither a chip nor a putt. So Freddie split the difference. He chipped it with the toe of his putter. And what a shot it was. That's imagination, and that's talent. Few players would have visualized that shot, and fewer still would have attempted it, let alone hold it. Understandably, the gallery was appreciative. Fred finished the day with a 2-under par 68. The fairway bunkers at Southern Hills are numerous and penal, especially if you catch one with a high front lip, as Ian Woosnam did at number 9. But the wee Welshman handled it very nicely. Now the birdie putt. Over the first 8 holes, Woozy's scorecard showed 4 threes, and that putt made it 5 for 9. Woosnam made the turn in 32 and came back in 36 to join Mickelson and Couples at 2 under par. At the difficult 18th, Tom Watson faced a ticklish pitch down the slope, but he made it look easy. Had that ball taken another roll or two, Watson would have made it a foursome of players at 2 under. but his swing was in peak form, as it had been all summer long, and his 1 under par 69 was a strong start in Watson's quest to win the one major that has eluded him. But surely the most confident man in this year's field was Nick Price, who already had won 3 times in the United States, plus the British Open in 1994. Price's game had reached a level that seemed a notch above the rest of the world of professional golf. And armed with a new aluminum putter, he seemed to have the feel for the treacherous Southern Hills greens. He opened the championship with a 67 to tie Colin Montgomery for the first round lead. Price, who won the PGA at Belle Reve in 1992, joined several of his colleagues from the present and past, including the legendary Byron Nelson, for the traditional Champions Clinic on Tuesday afternoon. Here's 2-time winner Ray Floyd with the wedge. 1990 PGA champ Wayne Grady. 85 champion Hubert Green participated in the demonstration. And then it was smooth swinging Larry Nelson. Nick Price showed his winning form with a 5-iron. Followed by 1988 champ Jeff Sluman with a 4-iron. Fairway Woods from 1977 champion Lanny Wadkins. And the long drive lesson came from who else? John Daly.
My golf swing is I just try and, knock the hell out of the ball. That's basically all I do. I got jack shot down.
In the wake of that mighty blast, Daly stepped back and helped an elderly fellow named Nicholas to approach the tee and try his hand.
Thank you, son.
There also was one special moment.
When I read that Dave Stockton's goal this year was to play a practice round with me at the PGA. And I just want to thank you, David, because that became my goal. And we've attained it, brother.
Underneath that unaccustomed hat is the reigning Masters champion, Jose Maria Olazabal. In keeping with PGA tradition, the winners of the first 3 majors were paired together, and shots like this one at the 5th brought back memories of springtime in Augusta. Olazabal opened with a 72. Meanwhile, the 3rd member of this elite group enjoyed some of Thursday's magic at the par 3 11th. Ernie Els didn't hit the pin, as Stewart and Montgomery had, but his birdie putt was by far the shortest of the day, and it gave the gallery at this hole another moment of high entertainment. The strapping young U.S. Open champion seems to thrive on difficult courses. At Southern Hills, he started with a score of 2 under par, exactly as he had started in the Open at Oakmont. A total of 14 players bettered par on Thursday, and one of the more formidable of them was the 1977 champion Lanny Wadkins. With shots like this approach to number 10, the Ryder Cup captain was playing well enough to make his own team. Wadkins, in his 22nd PGA, opened with a 69. And he was tied with this man, the last player to win a major championship at Southern Hills, Raymond Floyd. These days, Ray spends most of his time on the senior tour, but he couldn't resist a return to the place where he owns the course record, a 63, and on Thursday, he certainly seemed to be enjoying himself. But the man in this field with the most competitive experience by far was this man, Arnold Palmer. And at 16, he showed his fans that he can still make a golf ball dance. At age 64, Palmer was making his final appearance in the major he tried for 37 years to win. The PGA Championship will miss the king. So at the end of round 1, Price and Montgomery led the way at 67 with a quartet 1 stroke back. More strong contenders lurked 2 and 3 strokes behind, as a total of 26 players completed their rounds in par or better. However, some former major championship winners were on the north side of par, and 2 legends of golf struggled much of the day and barely broke 80. Golf Digest ranks it 23rd in America. Golf Magazine ranks it 38th in the world. Southern Hills Country Club is unquestionably one of the grand dames of championship golf. Her history goes back to the Depression, when the co-founder of Phillips Petroleum, Wade Phillips, donated 300 acres of his prime Tulsa land. But it was two local businessmen, Cecil Canary and Bill Warren, who convinced Phillips to donate the land and then convinced fellow Tulsan Perry Maxwell to design the course. Southern Hills opened in 1936, and this has become a course every serious golfer wants to play. The Tulsa skyline is visible from the first tee at Southern Hills, and it was another day of large galleries for the second round of the '94 PGA. The hottest golfer on the course was certainly Blaine Mickelson, who made 3 birdies in the first 5 holes and then hit this tee shot at the par 3 6th. That set up birdie number 4. He shot 31 on the front, birdied 10, and then stroked this one to go 6 under par for the day. Mickelson's right-handed swing and left-handed putting stroke were mixing well on Friday.
I played it just outside the left edge and put a good solid stroke on it. It was one of those putts that if you lose your speed, you're going to miss it right, and I told myself I wasn't going to let that happen. I just kept the ball with a good speed on it, and it went right in the center.
After pars at the next 3 holes, he gave himself another birdie chance at the 15th. Mickelson bogeyed 17, but finished with a 64, 1 stroke off the PGA record. It was also 10 strokes better than his opening round. Ernie Els started poorly with bogeys at each of the first 3 holes, but he turned his day around with that putt. Then at the 13th hole, the 24-year-old South African hit a drive of over 300 yards and played this second shot with a middle iron. It finished pin high and left him a good chance for an eagle. Els seems to be one of those rare players who can make this game look very easy. He had a second round 71 for a total of 139. Speaking of making the game look easy, how about this shot by Mike Springer? That is a very effective way of taking strokes off your score. A bit more conventional way to shoot 67 is by making putts like this. And who's better at that than Corey Pavin? Corey finished at 137 for 2 days. Hot on his heels was the Masters champion, who made the turn on Friday in 33 and then played this tee shot to number 11. The favorable kick left him an uphill putt for birdie. Well read and perfectly struck, Olafable 66 gave him a 36-hole total of 138. One of the toughest holes at Southern Hills is number 12, a dogleg par 4 that makes the pros play carefully from the tee.
If you take driver, it's a gamble. You go over the bunker. Now, a driver's going to leave you an 8 or 9 iron in, whereas a 3-wood will leave you a 5 or 6 iron in. But you need to be in the fairway. You've got water that comes into play a little bit to the right of the green, not necessarily short. So the approach, you're basically going for the middle of the green to give yourself the best putt at birdie.
But when you're swinging with the confidence of Nick Price, every hole becomes a chance to attack the flag. After hitting a driver down the throat of number 12, Price played this approach with a 7-iron. And that is about as good as it gets at number 12. Through the first 11 holes, Price was 2 under, and he stood at 5 under par for the championship with a 2-stroke advantage on his nearest challenger. His putting had been especially sharp, and there was little doubt that this 3-footer would find the cup. 2 more birdies gave him a 5-stroke lead. He seemed invincible, except to himself.
There's no such thing as invincibility. I know that, and I've played this game way too long to understand. That a lot of people might say, "Oh, the tournament's over or the championship's over." There's nothing further from the truth. So, I've got a lot of work to do the next 2 days, and I've just got to go out there and try and do the same things that I've been doing the last 2 days.
Surely all eyes would be on Nick Price for the final 36 holes. Meanwhile, as Price had prospered, his first-round co-leader, Colin Montgomery, had struggled. His low point came at 12, where a poor drive resulted in this lengthy third shot to the green. And there was still some work left there, and the big Scotsman knew it. After chipping back, this was his putt for a bogey 5. Montgomery's 76 dropped him into a tie for 38th at the halfway point. Two of the day's most electrifying shots came from a pair of players in the same group and occurred on back-to-back holes. This was Tom Lehman's approach to the par 4 17th. Perfection. With the help of that eagle, he made the cut by 2 strokes. And eagles must be contagious. This was Lehman's playing partner, Brian Henniger, at the 18th. It gave Henniger a 65 for a 2-round total of 142. The PGA Championship is conducted by the Professional Golfers Association of America. The starting field includes not only the big-name stars, but 40 club pros, the top finishers in the PGA's Club Professional Championship. These men also teach the game, conduct tournaments, and serve their members in myriad ways. Their names and faces may not be recognizable to the galleries, but each of them is a bona fide hero at his home club. This is John Bermel, the head professional at Beaver Hills Country Club in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Bermel got the thrill of his life this week when he played a practice round with Arnold Palmer. Thursday, he shot 72 to lead the Club Pro contingent. It made him think about his travel plans.
I got the Oldsmobile Scramble at my golf course on Monday, and so hopefully what I'm planning on doing is driving through the night on Sunday and teeing off at 11 o'clock on Monday morning with a group of guys. And I've got to be out there at 6:30, no matter how many hours it takes me to get back. I got to be there at 6:30 to help set up for it, because that's a big one for us.
As it worked out, Bermel missed the cut and had plenty of time to get home. But 4 club professionals were among the survivors. One of them, Bob Boyd, a PGA professional from Hilton Head Island, South Carolina.
We have a tremendous amount of good players within the PGA of America. If they didn't make the cut this week, there's no telling what horror stories might have happened between putting or a bad shot here or there. They're not used to this kind of pressure. I'm not used to this kind of pressure, but we have an awful lot of good players, and on any given week, I think they could come in and certainly a many number of them could make the cut.
The low club pro after 2 rounds was Tom Dolby, head professional at the Southview Country Club in West St. Paul, Minnesota. Dolby had parlayed some putting advice from Ben Crenshaw into a 68 on Friday in a 2-round total of 141 that placed him among the top 24 names on the leaderboard. It also got the attention of several members of the media. Quite an experience for a man playing in his first PGA.
I don't know if it's really sunk in yet. I'm really excited. We're walking up the 18th fairway there, and my brother, who's caddying for me, had a baby 7 weeks ago, and his wife's been back home with the baby now for the whole time by herself, and she said, if you don't make the cut, you got to fly back home right away. And I told him, I said, you're staying on Monday now. So the whole family's excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Meanwhile, the PGA Tour pros were having some fun of their own in round 2. Phil Mickelson had made 2 birdies and 2 bogeys by the time he reached the green at 9. That was birdie number 3, but he finished the day at 1 over, 1 under for the championship, and 7 behind Price. Well, he may be a little tough to recognize in the hat, but that putting stroke is unmistakable. Nick Faldo shot a 67 on Friday and climbed into contention at even par for the first 2 rounds. The award for the day's strangest round went to Jay Haas, who triple bogeyed the 9th, but then got revenge on the back 9. The putt at 15 gave him his 5th birdie in 6 holes, and he wasn't through. The 16th hole was a members par 5 that the pros play is a very difficult 4-par.
If you miss the fairway, you have to be very careful of the pond, about 20 yards short of the green on the left. Overall, though, with the wind helping, it's a little easier to hit the ball straight, so you should see a lot of guys in the fairway, but the shot to the green is going to be tough because the green tilts from back to front and slightly from right to left, and the back left pin should be the hardest one.
Well, that back left pin was no problem for the red-hot Haas. After a perfect tee shot, this was his approach with a 7-iron. Wow, the triple at 9 must have really made him mad. And when this one fell, he was now 6 under for the second 9 with 2 holes to play. A bogey at 18 gave him an inward 30, a 66 for the day, and a share of second with Pavin at 3 under. Haas and Pavin were joined at that number by the man with the silken stroke, Ben Crenshaw, who used only 50 putts in the first 2 rounds, including that birdie at 13. Crenshaw was 3 under for the day. Yes, Friday afternoon brought out some hot golf and some hot spectators. The Tulsa heat wasn't bothering John Cook. At 18, he coolly rolled this one home for a 67, and then he delivered a defense of his colleagues in professional golf.
I think that golfers are a lot better athletes than people give them credit for, and a lot better shape than people give them credit for, and they're a lot stronger than people think they are, and the guys that aren't in shape will feel it. The guys that are in shape won't have any problem with the heat.
And here's a threesome of letter-perfect spectators. And here at the 13th is a letter-perfect 50-footer by the great white shark. Greg Norman had missed some opportunities for 2 days, and that broke the monotony of 12 straight pars.
The rest of my game's still been pretty solid. I mean, I've really kept on working hard on that, make sure I didn't lose any concentration or patience with that, because it can turn around very quickly. You only have to make 1 or 2 putts or 3 out of 5 holes, and you see the ball going in, and wham, you're off and running again.
For Paul Azinger, the putter was more hindrance than help this week. Despite some good play from Tita Green, nothing seemed to drop, and the defending champion finished at 149, 3 strokes over the 36-hole cut. That was the bad news. The good news is that after the most frightening and difficult year of his life, Paul Azinger is back in good health and in good spirits, and his fans of all ages couldn't be happier.
The support I received from the crowd was a little overwhelming at times, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I was disappointed I didn't play better. I aggravated in spots, but that's only natural. It's the nature of the game.
Nick Price's 5-stroke lead at the halfway mark was an all-time PGA record, but there were 21 players at par or better for 2 rounds, and with 36 holes to go, not one of them was about to concede this championship to Mr. Price. The cut came at 145, and 3 former PGA champions were among those who just missed. While for a few other notables, it wasn't close at all. At a reception earlier in the week, PGA President Gary Shaw presented the PGA's highest honor, the Distinguished Service Award, to Arnold Palmer.
When you think about distinguished service and you think about the adjectives that go along with this award, such as integrity, sportsmanship, giving, and perpetuating the game of golf, there's probably no better name than Mr. Arnold Palmer.
I just think that all of us, you people, me, everyone, have a great thing, and we need to protect this great thing with the tradition and the integrity and the things that have made golf so great in our life. And to all the members of the PGA, and my father being one, I just thank you very much.
On Friday, Arnie finished in vintage Palmer style. This par-saving 20-footer at 18 gave his army ample reason for a last hurrah.
I can't put into words what the game has meant to me. If I can leave a feeling that people have been so great, and if I can leave the feeling that I have enhanced the game and the people's enjoyment of the game, I would be very happy for that. That would make me feel like I have accomplished something, and if I could keep the legacy of the game going on as we knew it in the old days, that would make me very happy too.
Arnold Palmer, a distinguished servant to golf, if ever there was one. Huge galleries greeted Nick Price and his pursuers as the championship headed into round number 3. Of the 151 players in the starting field, just over half survived. Well, Saturday is known as moving day on the Pro Tour, and one of the first to make a move was Jumbo Ozaki, who sank this jumbo putt at the second hole. That put him at 1 under for the championship. It also put a smile on his face and caused him to give thanks. Phil Mickelson also got going quickly. This was his approach from the left rough at hole number 1. That bounced off the flagstick, and a fortunate thing it was because it might not have held the green. Could Mickelson take advantage of his good fortune? With a stroke like that one, 6-footers are hard to miss.
From Austin, Texas, please welcome Mr. Ben Crenshaw.
In the day's second to last tee time, Ben Crenshaw split the fairway with his tee shot. But his approach strayed into the right bunker, leaving an awkward stance and tricky explosion down the slope of the green. Well, tricky for most of us. Ben made it look easy and saved his 4 to stay at 3 under par. Up ahead at the third, Jose Maria Olazabal and Blaine McAllister each left themselves lengthy putts for birdie. First, the Spaniard from 40 feet. That canceled a bogey at number 2 and kept him at 2 under par. Then, from the same angle, but a bit shorter, McAllister. That would have been a heck of a halve in a Ryder Cup match. It kept Blaine abreast of his playing companion at 2 under. The hills were alive, Southern Hills, with the sound of birdies, and there was plenty of action to follow. For example, this tee shot by Ian Woosnam to the 215-yard 8th hole. One bounce, a quick roll down the slope, and an inch from an ace. At the same hole, Phil Mickelson had this putt for a birdie 2. That was his 5th birdie of the day. Mickelson was putting some heat on Mr. Price. And so too was Corey Pavin. This, his second shot at the 7th. Corey had birdied the 2nd and 4th to go to 5 under. And that tap-in makes it -6. Price had played the first 7 holes even par, so Pavin was 2 back, and now Mickelson only 3 behind. One of the major hurdles on the home stretch is 15, a hole that even Nick Price treats with respect.
Very demanding tee shot, the bunker left. If you hit the ball too straight off the tee, it'd go behind some huge trees on the right-hand side. A very difficult green, probably the most undulating green on the golf course, and requires a pinpoint iron shot there if you're going to make a birdie. Par, a good hole to par, but if you make birdie there, you've played it really well.
Greg Norman came to 15 at 2 under for the championship. After a 3-wood off the tee, he played one of those towering approach shots for which he's famous. Straight at the flag and only 5 feet away. Norman was now 3 under. The man who almost won last year seemed ready to challenge once again. 9 had been an unlucky hole for Jay Haas on Friday. It was here where he took a disastrous triple bogey. On Saturday, however, Haas played safely with a 3-wood off the tee and then hit this 7-iron to the hillside green. That was certainly a lot better than Friday. His 15-footer was straight down the slope. And that was 4 strokes better than yesterday and brought him within 4 of Price. That Haas putt was struck with purpose.
That was a little vengeance in that putt when I made it. I was pleased that I was able to come back on that hole and make a birdie.
Haas tends to make birdies in bunches, and he kept it going with a 3 at the par 4 10th. Then at the 11th, from 35 feet away. He made it 3 in a row. and he now had pulled within 2 of Price, and every ounce of momentum seemed to be on his side. For the moment, at least, the Southern Hills Galleries had several close contenders to follow. One of the best viewing spots all week had been on the 11th hole, where the flagstick had been peppered. On Saturday, it was Jose Maria Olazabal's turn to thrill the greenside gallery. That tap-in put him back at 2 under, where he began the day. The championship leader was not nearly as accurate from the tee of this short par 3, but he showed fine control with that bunker shot. 11 is a beautiful hole, no matter how you play it. Price, though, was on a par train, and this was for 11 straight. Price had allowed the field to gain just a bit of ground on him. This is number 17, the shortest par 4 on the course.
The fairway is a tumbling fairway. Out about 230 yards, the fairway really breaks off and has a lot of little twists and turns to where you can get some awkward lies. And it's a pitch to a really tight little green. It's well bunkered in front. It's a green that has a lot of contour, but you don't want to go past. If you go past or over the green, you've had it.
Phil Mickelson didn't go past, but he did miss the green to the left. Then he asked for the flagstick to be removed, presumably to leave plenty of room for his ball. And that was the case indeed. Mickelson finished the day with a 67 and a 54-hole total of 206. He liked his chances going into Sunday.
It's hard to play more aggressive than I did today. I made 7 birdies, and I made some mistakes, but that's going to happen when you're attacking the pin, and I did that. So I feel like if I strike the ball and play as well as I did today, I'll have a good shot at it tomorrow.
Corey Pavin bogeyed 12 and seemed on his way to another bogey at 13 when his second shot barely missed the pond in front of the green. After some deliberation, he decided the only way to play it was with 1 shoe on and 1 shoe off. Still, this was a perilous situation, and when one local was asked whether Corey had any chance of escaping, the answer was emphatic. But escape he did. After this third shot, Corey got down in 2 for his par 5, all in a day's work at the PGA Championship. Price had stopped his par streak in the wrong way with a bogey at 12, but at 13 he got things back on track when this one found the hole for a birdie. That put the British Open champion in 2-stroke command of Jay Haas, with Phil Mickelson 3 behind. But there was a lot of time left on this Saturday afternoon. At 15, 3 poor shots in a row left Jay Haas chipping for par. Make that 4 poor shots in a row. Finally, on in 5, he had this putt for a double bogey. That's a 7, the second triple of the tournament for Haas. Had he parred the hole today and the 9th hole yesterday, he'd be leading the tournament. Instead, he had fallen 5 strokes off the pace. But Haas proved his resilience once again. He came right back with a birdie at 16, and then playing to a pin tucked tight behind the bunker at 17, he played this brilliant wedge.
Happy birthday, Jan.
And congratulations to you too, Jay. Back-to-back birdies and a 68 to hold onto second place. 1 shot behind him was Corey Pavin, thanks to this stroke of genius at the 16th hole. That chip shot never strayed from the perfect line. It took him to 4 under for the tournament, only 3 behind Price. Price came to the 17th. Statistically, the easiest par 4 of the tournament. He had birdied it Thursday, and after this crisply struck wedge, he was about to birdie it once again. Saturday had been the weakest of Price's 3 rounds, if you can call 2 bogeys, 13 pars, and 1 birdie a weak performance. Correction, make that 2 bogeys, 13 pars, and 2 birdies. This one took him back to even par for the day. Pavin's approach to 17 nearly went into the grandstand, and by his standards, his third shot was even worse. That ball moved barely 5 yards. Now he faced an even tougher chip, and this time it was for par.
It was a pretty hard shot there, and I was just trying to hit something high and hopefully get it around the hole and get out of there with a bogey. And it came out a little faster than I thought and just slammed right into the pin and went in. That's what I call a big bonus chip there.
A big bonus for the fans, too, who were clearly as surprised and pleased as Corey, especially the young fan who got to keep the magic ball as a souvenir. At the difficult home hole, Pavin gave himself a good opportunity for a closing birdie. From just off the green, 15 feet above the hole, he hit one of his best putts of the day. But not even the collective body English of the gallery could nudge it the final millimeter. 4 strokes behind Price with 1 round to go, Pavin had a chance to shake his unofficial title as the best player never to win a major.
Just winning a major championship would be the most satisfying thing. I think it's been a long haul for me. It's something I've wanted for a long, long time. It hasn't just been the last couple of years where I've got a little more attention about it. So, I mean, to me, that's the ultimate win out here on tour, and that's what I'm after.
Now he had 18 holes left in which to make it happen. But first, Pavin and everyone else had to go after Nick Price. With the lead narrowed from 5 strokes to 3, it seemed anyone at 2 under par or better still had at least an outside chance of catching Nick, if he'd let them. Those at par or over par hoped simply to have a good finish on Sunday, while for the weekend's elder statesman, 2-time champion Ray Floyd, there must have been at least some solace in making the cut in this championship for the 27th time. The PGA of America brings its flagship event to all sectors of the country, and future sites are selected years in advance, as PGA Vice President and Championship Chairman Tom Addis attests.
PGA Championship has had a great opportunity to go to some great golf courses in this country. This year, Southern Hills in Tulsa being a perfect example of that, a great golf course. The players love it. Next year, 1995, at the famed Riviera near Los Angeles. There have only been 4 major championships in Southern California, Riviera hosting 3 of those. We're very excited about Riviera. The following year, 1996, in Louisville, Kentucky at Valhalla. Then New York, the famed Wingfoot. 1998, we head up to the Pacific Northwest and Sahalee Country Club. And to give you an idea of how we are looking into the future for the PGA Championship, we recently announced the selection of the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts in the year 2005.
We all certainly have something to look forward to in the PGA Championships of the future. But the 94 PGA is not over yet. So after 54 holes of the 76th PGA Championship, Nick Price has set the pace. The 37-year-old from Zimbabwe is in pursuit of his 2nd PGA crown in 3 years, and if he holds on to the lead, he'll complete a Grand Slam sweep by non-Americans for the first time in the history of golf. But giving chase on this final Sunday, a talented group of Americans, led by Jay Haas, Corey Pavin, Phil Mickelson, John Cook, and Ben Crenshaw. They're all within striking distance, and you can bet that Price also has his eyes on a particular shark who's looming on the leaderboard. They're all going after the famed Wanamaker Trophy and the title of PGA Champion. Thousands of spectators from all over the world of golf came out to see firsthand who that champion would be. Sunday brought back memories for Price and Haas. In '82, Haas was paired in the final round here with eventual champion Ray Floyd. For Price, the memories were more recent and more positive. 2 years ago at the Belle Reef Country Club in St. Louis, he had won his first major championship, the 1992 PGA. This mammoth putt on Saturday took him within 2 of the 54-hole lead. And on Sunday, he birdied the 70th and 71st holes to win the title by 3 strokes. That victory launched Price on a magnificent run that had taken him to the top of his profession, with 15 victories in 24 months, including the British Open at Turnberry only 4 weeks before the PGA. Now on the verge of his second major in a row, he knew all that mattered was the 18 holes that confronted him this Sunday afternoon. Surely he was hoping to start his day the way Bill Glasson did. At the second hole, after a tee shot into light rough on the left, Glasson played this 164-yard shot with a 7-iron. One of 9 Eagle 2s at Southern Hills this week, one of which came from that man, Tom Lehman. The crowd at the first tee became 6 deep when Greg Norman arrived. But for the Great White Shark, the most important fan had to be this young man named Gregory John Norman Jr. And his father didn't disappoint him. That tee shot was straight down the middle and long, very long. From there, Norman needed only a short iron to this 456-yard hole. And he struck it pin high, 10 feet from the cup. Norman had been less than happy with his putting all week, but there was never a doubt about that one. Now he was only 4 back of Price. Was this the beginning of a Shark attack?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Orlando, Florida, the 1992 PGA champion, Nick Price.
The question on everyone's mind, would the 92 champion become the 94 champion? If Nick was feeling any tension, that swing didn't show it. And neither did the result. Only one word to describe that opening shot: perfect. But up ahead at the demanding second hole, another big tee shot had been played by Greg Norman. Staring down the throat of the green, Norman attacked with this sky-high approach that landed softly beneath the hole. A good chance for a second straight birdie for Norman. In the center all the way. Norman had come within a whisker last year at Inverness, and now after 2 flawless holes, he was in the battle again. And his good friend Nick was ready for him.
I said to Squeak yesterday, my caddy, I said, there's a really, I think Greg's going to catch fire on the weekend, you know, because he's played 2 really solid rounds in the first 2 rounds, and then he played a great round yesterday. And I was convinced he was going to shoot 4 or 5 under today. It was key for me to get off to a good start. And so it wasn't unexpected that Greg got off to a good start for me. I said, well, here he's coming.
Nick didn't match Greg's birdie, but that was a rock-solid par to begin the day. And with the record he's compiled the last 2 years, everyone knows he can handle the heat of a final round. Tough start, though, for Jay Haas. He pulled his opening tee shot into the rough and left himself a 10-footer to save par. Now Norman was in second, 3 back. However, at least one other player was beginning to pour on the pressure. Phil Mickelson. After a pair of opening pars, the best young player in America hit this approach to the 3rd. Five-footers are almost routine for this young man who modeled his putting stroke after Ben Crenshaw's. That put him at 5 under, tied with Norman, 3 behind Price. At the 4th hole, Mickelson continued to make his move. The pin was cut just beyond that huge right-hand bunker, but that didn't seem to bother Phil. Check out the obedient action on this wedge shot. You know your nerves are good when you can ram home 3-footers like that. Mickelson now 6 under par. But at the 3rd hole, Price showed he was far from rattled. When his fellow competitors say that Nick's game is at a different level, they're referring to shots like this one. The best player in the world doesn't miss too many of these. So in the early going, Price held his 3-stroke lead. But Mickelson had become his closest pursuer, with Norman a stroke further back, followed by Haas, Pavin, and Cook. And at number 4, Price showed he was not about to back off. After a 2-iron tee shot to the heart of the fairway, this was his approach with a pitching wedge. 2 feet from the stick at number 3, 6 feet here. That's a man in command of his game. The 4th hole yielded 17 birdies on Sunday, and the final came from the championship leader. 10 under par and back to a 4-stroke lead. Meanwhile, his challengers were doing a bit of shuffling at the par 5 5th hole. From 25 feet away, John Cook drained this one to move to 5 under par. But Greg Norman, who had found trouble off the tee, had this putt for par. The bogey 6 put the brakes on his fast start. Nick Faldo had been relatively quiet for most of this championship, but on Sunday, he sneaked this one into the hole at number 12 to reach 2 under par. Faldo tied for second in the '92 PGA and was third behind Azinger and Norman last year. And both times he had strong closing rounds. On Sunday at Southern Hills, he showed he had another fast finish in mind. This would be his 4th birdie in a row. A final round 66, a 277 total, and a tie for 4th. Downtown Tulsa was also relatively quiet on this Sunday, but Nick Price was staying active. No putts seemed to give him a pause. How tough is this man in the final round? The par 3-8 yielded only 1 birdie, and Nick Price was the man who made it. At the easier short hole, number 11, John Cook rolled this one home for a birdie to regain a stroke. But at 5 under par for the tournament, he was 6 behind with 7 holes to play. It had been an uneventful day for Corey Pavin, all pars. At 12, after trouble off the tee, he was forced to play his 3rd shot from nearly 100 yards out. At this point, Pavin could not afford to lose any more strokes. But thanks to his trusty wand, Pavin saved par. But he was even on the day through 12, and that meant he was 7 strokes out of the lead. Greg Norman's charge had been halted by his bogey 6 at number 5, but at Southern Hills' only other par 5, he got some revenge. This pitch was for an eagle. Nicely played. And the birdie put Greg back to -5. Phil Mickelson also had cooled off in the 8 holes since his birdie at 4. He had made 7 pars and a bogey. But at the same par 5, the 13th, he played this fine 3rd shot from the right-hand rough. Mickelson at this point was tied with Cook and Norman at 5 under. This then was to move into sole possession of 2nd place. It had become, in fact, a fight for 2nd because Nick Price was 3 under for the day and had extended his lead to 5 with only 6 holes remaining. At 15, Corey Pavin tightened that race for 2nd when this one slid in for a birdie. His first birdie after 14 straight pars, and Pavin was now 5 under. Meanwhile, Mickelson and Norman were headed in the wrong direction on the leaderboard. At 16, Mickelson's tee shot found the woods on the right. This was his putt for a bogey 5. So a double bogey and a drop from solo 2nd into a tie for 3rd. At the 17th, Norman found trees off the tee and more here. It was the beginning of a double bogey. He would finish at 3 under par, tied for 4th with Faldo and Cook. Price had given up a stroke of his lead with a 3-putt at the 15th. But at 16, he came right back. This was a 6-iron from 180. Could anyone have doubted that this one was bound straight for the bottom of the cup? Few players have conquered a course or a field of competitors as completely as Nick Price has this week in Tulsa. And yet he remains the very kindest of conquerors. The battle for the runner-up spot had come down to Corey Pavin and Phil Mickelson. Everyone else, including Greg Norman, had signed off for the week. Mickelson gave himself a good chance to catch Pavin at the final green. This one, however, was not to be. He finished alone in third while furthering his education as a professional golfer. This young man surely will be contending in the majors well into the 21st century. This short putt for par would give Pavin sole possession of second. For Corey, it was not the victory he wanted, but it was nonetheless his best finish ever in a major championship. His day likely will come. But this day and this championship belong to only one man. At 18, Nick Price hit his approach to the heart of the green. All that remained now was a very satisfying stroll up the hill as the thousands surrounding the green gave him the champion's reception.
To walk up the 18th hole there knowing that you've won the tournament or the championship and the people start standing up, it's like, you know, we came here to see good golf and thanks for giving it to us. That's what it feels like. And there's nothing better than playing well in front of people. There really isn't. When you come out and you know people have paid money to come and watch you, and you say, well, hopefully one of those people, some of those people are going to learn something from what you did on the golf course, which will improve their games and make them run to the golf course the next day. Get a big kick out of that.
And so the Wanamaker Trophy awaited his grasp for a second time in 3 years. This par putt was to tie Jack Nicklaus's record victory margin of 7 strokes. Not to be, but Price's final round of 67 gave him a total of 269, and that's the lowest 72-hole total in PGA Championship history. Congratulations from Jay Haas and from the faithful Squeaky, who's getting used to this ritual at the PGA. He caddied for John Daly in 91, for Price in 92 and 94. In fact, he's making a collection of the 18th hole flags. Squeaky, for one, thinks Nick is on his way to being one of the greatest ever.
As we all grow up, you know, I mean, guys I think of, you know, that they always talk about, Byron Nelson, Ben Hogan, Sam Snead. I just hope that someday when they talk about those people that they'll put Nick Price's name in there.
It was finally time to savor the victory.
I couldn't let up today. I just wanted to go ahead and play the game that I felt I could best today. And the only time I relaxed was when I hit my second shot on 16, because I figured that I could go double bogey and still win.
A man with a sense of humor and a sense of gratitude.
I really just want to say one thing. I wanted to dedicate this win to my mother over in England. You know, I've always thanked everyone else when I've got up here, Dave Ledbetter, my wife, and everyone else. And you know, I just really, I want to dedicate this to my mom, because not only has she been a great mother, but she's also been one of my best friends throughout my life. So this one's for you, Mum.
Well, Mrs. Price is very proud, and so too the PGA of America with its 94 champion.
And now it's my pleasure, and on behalf of 23,000 golf professionals, I present you the 1994 Rodman Wanamaker Trophy.
I have the utmost respect for all the members on the board of the PGA, and also all the other guys, the 23,000 other PGA members who make golf fun for all of you out there. I had a lot of help from PGA professionals when I was younger, and advice on which clubs to get, and it's always been this has always been a very special championship in that respect, because it represents professional golf to the nth degree. To everyone at the PGA and all the volunteers and the fans, you people have been great all week. I'm sorry it might have been a little boring for you today, but I promise you I had a lot of fun.
Nick Price became the first man since Tom Watson in 1982 to win major championships back-to-back, and the first man since Walter Hagen in 1924 to win the British Open and the PGA Championship in the same year. At the end of the week, Nick was ranked the #1 player in the world, and by winning the PGA for the second time in 3 years, he'd be the first to tell you that this one was twice as nice for Price.